when I first asked him, what should we talk about? And he said he is ready for any topic. So I'm just bringing a random topic, and then there'll be issues that we might agree upon or we might disagree upon. So that's what we are looking for. And so, sir, are you ready for it? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just gonna start. You know, I'll just first build the fire, and then we can all join, okay? And make the full use of Mr. Lungleng today, because he's going in the next hour. So make the full use of it, and then we really hope for a productive session. So I'm sure that being a religious man, I expect let's have a brainstorming session. I expect from him that he supports free will. Are you, sir?
I do.
You do. So I'm more deterministic in contrary.
Okay, great.
So, yeah. So I just want to see a hand from the audience, including teachers and everybody present here. How many of us present here supports the idea of free will, that we are free-willed, that we have free will to do anything? How many of us here? Okay, that's so Sir Lungleng is your party, okay? Now, how many of us here thinks that everything about our life and that goes around our life is deterministic? Everything is determined. How many of us think? There's one over there. Yeah. Okay, three of us, okay? It's 3 versus all. Let's do this. And let's see after this session if you'll change our mind, okay? Let us quickly hear from Sir Lungleng. Why does he really think that life is free-willed?
You can hear us, right? Yeah, I think that's a very impromptu question. He did not give me any signal that a question like this would come up. So, yeah, I'll just give my opinion. It's opinion, all right? So you can take it or you can ignore it. In life, this comes from my values, and my values drove from my faith in God. And my faith in God means I'm a Christian, and I believe that God created me, and God is the source of my life. And God, when you look at how God created the world, He gave that from the beginning in the book of Genesis, if you read, He gave the free will to Adam and Eve. If you eat this fruit, you will die. If you don't, you will live. And they had the free will. If God has not given us the free will, He would have stopped, and we all wouldn't be here on earth like, trying to solve problems. And we'll be in heaven and just like so enjoying and just living with the beautiful animals and angels and so on, maybe, right? Since He had that idea of a free will given to human beings, they had the free to choose what they want. But they're not free to ignore the consequence. To me, that's what I believe.
Okay, unlike Sir Lungleng, I will not jump into a religious pool, okay? Being deterministic, and by me picking the deterministic position doesn't mean I'm an atheist, okay? I'm also a strong believer of God, but I lean towards the idea of determinism. So that is why I have this idea that, see, everything about our life is structured. And my argument is that there is causation, the idea of causation. Behind every effect, there is cause. And so if there is cause, your effect is determined by the cause, right? So in a micro level, we have in biological terms, we have neurons that structures the entire nervous system of our body, right? Which functions through neurons. And so each neurons determines the functioning of the other neurons. And so that's in a micro level. But in a macro level, when we talk about how life is predetermined, how I think everything is predetermined without including God here, my idea is that because things are predetermined, because everything that we do, let's say I want to drink water. It's not simply because I drink water, not simply because I have a freedom to drink water, it's because I'm thirsty, because there is a biological drive inside of me. So biology has constructed in a way that everything is determined. So I cannot really put free will there, because when you say that you have a freedom to pick and drink water or a freedom to eat food, behind that, your freedom that you are talking about, then there is a determinism there. Everything, all the structures, as you see, when things follows a pattern, which means it's structured, and when things are structured, it's predetermined. So each structure determines the other structure. So like when we talk about chess, game of chess, the interesting thing about game of chess is each move determines the rest of the moves. So if you make one mistake in your move, then it affects the entire moves. So that is how in every walk of life, that's what I think, that life is predetermined. So we do not really have freedom. When, let's say, when animals like tigers, do survive for survival's sake, they have to eat animals like deers, right? So if biology have construct animals like tiger that way, and our life, our sequence is also structured, then life is not really free-willed. So that is my concept. And
I can have a response to that?
Sure. Counter-argument.
Yes, I think that is true. There is some biological instinct that will always push us, and we do based on that push. Sometimes you have a choice not to respond to that. When you look at it, there was a guy from Andhra Pradesh who fasted unto death. That's why the Andhra Pradesh got its statehood in the year 1949, right? It's based on linguistic reorganization of the state. He fasted unto death. That means he had the free will not to respond to his hunger, because he had the free will for a goal, to achieve some goal. So yes, there will be push from our biological, mental, and from our spiritual needs that we have, but you have a will either to respond or not to respond. Sometimes when you respond, you will live. When you don't respond, you die. So there are many people who don't respond to that and they die. That's also part of a choice.
Yeah, that's great. But sometimes your response is determined by your idea. So when your idea forces you to respond, then you have no other choice but to respond. So in that sense, things are predetermined. So that's my argument.
Okay, this is interesting now.
So that's just a brainstorming, okay? Just a brainstorming. Okay, we'll move on to a real questions. Because I know that Mr. Lungleng is a strong supporter of freedom of speech, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
free speech. So, because I was curious when he went live and then he said, yeah, Donald Trump finally won the US presidential election. And then he said, I clearly support Donald Trump. That's simply because his idea is fully based on free speech. That's what you said. And so I'm just curious, to what extent do you support, and to what extent are you bringing up with the idea and your support towards free speech? Yeah.
That's my favorite question, I would say. Donald Trump, I'm not justifying for him, all right? But since he gave the context, I want to just speak on that line. He believes in the idea of freedom of speech. He doesn't want to censor. But when you look at the Democratic Party under the leadership of Joe Biden and Obama, the amount of the correct information, the true information that have been censored by the social media, by Facebook, by Twitter, the then Twitter, it's crazy. And citizens have been deprived of the right information, deprived of truth in the government. And without having the truth, there's no transparency. So without transparency, what good can come out of a government? Because when you look at government, this is the example that I always give. Government is like someone who held a live gun, live bullet near you. And you don't know who that person is going to shoot. But the opposition party is like who has a toy gun. Even if they shoot, you won't die. Because they're powerless. So in that two situations, which one you will be more careful and critical of the kind of step they're going to take next? Definitely the one with the power, with the real gun, because that can hurt your life, they can kill you, they can make law that affect and cripple all of us as a minority, for example. So the whole idea of freedom of speech is, when there is freedom of speech, you have the right to expose the oppression, like I said. You have the right to expose the falsehood of the government, the propaganda of the government. So now when you look at to what extent we can have freedom of speech, when you look at the US, they have called something called the First Amendment. It's all about absolute freedom of speech. You can say anything you want. Of course, it has to be legal. For example, just because you have the freedom of speech, you can't just post, pornographic videos on social medias and child pornography videos and just killing people because they don't agree with you. Those are not legal. So anything that is within the purview of legality, I would say we should have that freedom to say anything that you believe. Of course, not inciting someone to kill other person. That's not legal, right? Anything that is legal, you can talk about it. You have that absolute freedom in the US. But in India, we don't have that. If you read, I think, Article 19, it talks about the freedom of expression. But you can have freedom of expression. But there's a list that you cannot talk about. So the list is longer than the freedom that we have. That's the context that we have. That's why I always call the freedom of speech in India that we have is fake one. Right? Because if I say that I want to eat beef, I eat beef in Delhi, you can't say that because that will hurt the religious sentiments of the people. And you saw those leaders who came to ban beef in Nagaland, right? They were proceeding to enter Nagaland. But Naga people said, no, we don't allow you to come. In fact, we are against that freedom of speech. To me personally, however I disagree with them, I feel that they have the right to come and preach what they believe. So that we have the right to eat beef in their land. Right? I mean, I'm not saying that I want to hurt their sentiments, but them coming to Nagaland is going to hurt our sentiments. So India's freedom, the freedom of speech that we have under Indian Constitution is all about not hurt. You can speak anything except you should not hurt anyone's sentiments. So when you have that condition, there actually is no freedom of speech here. So in short, I believe in that. Yeah.
Okay, since we have jumped into a political domain, I also want to have a follow-up question. That is, in your podcast, you also brought several speakers who talked on NLDP Act, right? Oh, yeah. And you were the moderator. Because being a moderator, you cannot take any of the side, right? Okay. So didn't really heard your opinion on that because the whole time you were managing the discussion. So I want to have this freedom to ask you on what you really think on the NLDP Act.
I think everyone is aware of the issue of NLDP here, right? Liquor Total Prohibition Act of 1989. So that was the law made by government of Nagaland because there was unceasing pressure from the church and civil societies. Now, the reason behind the existence of NLTP is because of the NBCC and civil organizations. But the main, let's say, safely for now, the culprit is NPCC. I believe that NPCC is a church organization, and they have a right to voice out their grievance. They have the right to voice out their belief. And if the government decides to accept that, then the onus is on the government. Since NBCC is not the government, it's just a religious group, and they have the right to pressure the government as much as the RSS and other groups have the right to pressure the government. So when we say NBCC voicing out their concern, that's not interference in politics. That's what interest group does. That's what the pressure group does in politics. So I believe they have the full right to say what they believe, but the onus is on the government. If the government decides to accept them, well and good. If the government does not accept them, then we don't know what kind of repercussion we can get from such pressure. So NLTP, I wouldn't say is a bad thing or a good thing, but since NPCC has the right to say it, government has to decide on that, and the consequence, we don't know. That's why we need, so we are debating NLTP from our own assumption, from our own personal biases right now. Right? Everyone has their personal biases. No, if you drink, then you are going to create problem in our colony or create problem for the wives, for the children. That's our personal bias. We haven't seen the data. We haven't seen the evidence. If I were the government, I would constitute one committee to study the impact of, lifting NLTP, and compare and contrast and see the evidence, study the evidence, question the assumptions, and then sit down with the NBCC and come up with the solution. You can't say we will lift because it's high time without no evidence. Has the government done any study? Not really. So it's just we are formulating policy from our own convenient judgments and assumptions, and this is not how a government should formulate the policy. That's not how government formulates policy when you look at the developed countries around the world. So in short.
Thank you. I will not further stretch on that.
Yeah.
Okay, since we gather like this, and then the whole point of we gathering was a pointer towards the idea of critical thinking, right? So speaking is one form of thinking, because there can be different forms of thinking. There are people who, the one form of thinking could be writing. So people really think hard to write. And one form of thinking could be acting out, right? So you cannot act out when you don't think. But a lot of times, acting out fails because it's usually pursued by emotions. So it's not usually driven by our critical thinkings, our actions. It's usually driven by our emotions. That's what Freud and Jung's idea of unconscious state is, right? There is always an unconscious portion of our life that really forces us to do things. That is emotion is one mechanism, right? So speaking is one, how do I put it, is one proper form of thinking. How important do you think is, or how powerful do you think is communication, right? So in my in my perspective, because I'm usually into evolutionary ideas, so when you read through evolutionary hypothesis of the power of communication, it starts something like this. So when Homo sapiens, we know Homo sapiens itself is wise man. So when Homo sapiens were at the rise, so its predecessors were Neanderthals. I suppose it's Neanderthals or Homo erectus. It's Neanderthals, I suppose. Neanderthals, the difference between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens were that Neanderthals were big and strong. So in arguments, Neanderthals will never win against Homo sapiens because Homo sapiens could really speak. But in fist fight or physical fight, Neanderthals will tear the sapiens into pieces because physically sapiens were smaller, and then strength-wise, it's uncomparable. But one thing that lead the extinction of Neanderthals comes up when Homo sapiens came up with the idea of communication, right? Idea. So communication is nothing new. In animals' kingdom, like ants and bees, they communicate. So likewise, when Homo sapiens ate its rice, ate its peak, they started communicating. So there is one theory called gossip theory. So communication started with gossiping. So I gossip about you to somebody, about what happened today, and so that's how it expand. So that idea came. So that is gossip theory. So likewise, there is a power because communication can lead to teamwork, right? So Neanderthals, they were, although they depend on their physical strength, they did not have this. So no communication power. So when there's no communication, they cannot come as a team. So when sapiens could come as a team, Neanderthals were still alone. So how can they win against sapiens in battle? So likewise, there is an evolutionary power of communication that we see. So maybe in your own perspective on political perspective, or in your own perspective, how important or how necessary or how powerful do you think is communication?
That's a beautiful question, perfect question. I think I really want to commend you for coming up with a question like that. For a conversation and dialogue, the question is also more equally important as much as the answer itself. Without the right question, you cannot give the right answer. So knowing how to question in the first place is the way forward to get the right answer in life. Yes, to me, communication is crucial. And if you want to excel in social science or as an educator, invest in communication. Communication doesn't mean just learning how to communicate English, but it includes your emotions, it includes your thinking process, it includes how you explain very complex ideas and make people understand easily. Sometimes I think, on our podcast, I really wonder whether people are able to follow because maybe we're lacking in our skill to explain better. But sometimes it feels like people understand it. So this is something, I have been also thinking a lot. And my goal is to explain complex and tough ideas in simple terms that is understandable for the majority of the population. You know what, like when you look at lectures or speeches of highly qualified people, our common population don't bother to watch that because they can't understand. It's too complex. When you see research scholars coming together and have a seminar and discussing, I mean, most of us don't get them because maybe we fail in communicating our ideas to the common population. Only people who are used to their way of communication, then they will understand. That means at least the students will understand. But the common population is our target. So as a university, as students, as research scholars, if you just keep focusing to reach out only to your peer groups or that, then I think that will be too narrow. Our target should be how we can become a better communicator, either in writings. When you write with sophisticated English words and nobody gets it, you'll just get the regard, compliment saying that, oh, his way of writing English is strong. That's it. They don't get your idea. So you have to choose something, how to make people understand. And that's a very good way of looking at how we can grow as a society. Now, when it comes to political context, look at any country that has strong freedom of speech. They're always ahead of other countries. I mean, in many fields, not just economic sense. So when you look at the United States, like I said, they are the perfect example for free speech. And look at how much they have grown. I mean, literally the superpower. So how do we achieve that? We need communication. We need free speech. We need dialogue. Paulo Freire, again, I want to mention, our education system is like a banking education, but it has to be a dialectical or dialogue education. Why he said banking education? Because the teachers deposit the knowledge and information into the student, and the student is the customer who has an account in the university. And it got deposited, and it doesn't go out of it. So he compares it to banking education, where you come to the class and sit there whole day, listening to your teacher, just depositing information in your mind, where there is no reciprocity from you, where there is no interaction that is generated from you. So suppose he's asking me a question and I'm trying to think differently from what he's saying, is a skill as well. So as students and as scholars and as, let's say, intellectual, it is crucial, it is very, very important for us to not just toe the line of what somebody is saying. Think differently from what he's saying. Only that way we are able to see things differently from the questions that he's asking. So a society that can communicate well will always lead in the world. I mean, I believe in that because there are many evidences, right? But we Nagas are the Neanderthal style. We're just physically well built, and when these things come, hey, we will do it. We are driven by emotions without using much of our brains. And Naga men, okay, let me tell you, we are not broad-minded people. We are highly, highly sensitive and emotional people. And Naga men will try to project us, we're tough. We're not. All very sensitive people we are. And sometimes I feel that I'm one of them. So I'm trying to deconstruct that in myself. We have so much of biases. We have so much of emotional, we are too emotionally too sensitive. I think that's the whole point. When you learn how to communicate and when you really, really invest yourself in communicating your ideas to your friends and to your colleagues, and when you make them understand, and when you question them, and when you think differently out of the box, I think that's how transformation begins. Yeah, so we lack in that. I mean, we all know that. So I think this is the place where it should begin, that kind of transformation in our society.
Okay, we'll have a last thing for my end, and then we'll start up with the Q&A, okay? So, this is what I seriously want to hear from you, sir. Because if you remember the conversation that we started with, when I said, sir, I'm really scared that even in our Naga society, that entertainment is taking over education. That's what I said. And then you said, yeah, I think so. And I also think that young people today are trunked in entertainment. That's what you said. I'm just exposing everything. I hope that's fine.
we can get screenshot and show them also,
Right. So, because a I'll bring this idea from a very psychological perspective, and then let's see what's your opinion on this would be. So in consumer sectors, when I started studying about the dark sides of consumer sectors or consumer industry, this question started when I found that, because some years back we got at one time we got good scholarship. So I would not say, but that was a good scholarship where I could buy iPhone. So me and my friends, we all got the same amount of scholarship. That was huge. And so because I had to pay my fee, so I, sanctioned everything, that this is going for fee and this is going for 10 tithes, and this is that's how I structured. And the very day that we received our scholarship, a lot of our friends went out to buy iPhone. So that was surprising to me. And then I started thinking how badly we are trapped in the what do we call, there is a picture of pleasure, and then behind there is a trap that would really hold you and you'll get stuck there. So this idea of iPhone really made me think, and through which I really wanted to study on the consumer sector or consumer industry. So in products, okay, and then I see the same thing that Naga's young people, including maybe myself and all of us, are stuck here, is that, logos and brands and things like that can really trap you. That's the thing. So in consumer sector, what happens is that as much as we are building relationship through a simple chat in our Instagram, so as what in consumer industry, what it does is, because they hire psychologists, they structure everything. So whatever happens is nothing surprising. So they structure in a way that everything becomes engaging. So let's say a game like mobile games like PUBG or Mobile Legends could be so addictive. Why? Because there is an idea that there will be events, right, where there'll be skins, there'll be ranks that you have to compete in, then after which your rank will be down, and so you have to climb up again. So which makes you really get attached to the game. So that is a small idea of gaming, how it becomes addictive. The other side of the idea of producing products and how it becomes addictive also is like when they are brands. So when they produce products, they don't simply produce products, they produce ideas. They don't sell products, but they sell ideas. So ideas like when we wear Nike, we feel in a way that we share a same sportsmanship with people, those who also wear Nikes. We share identities. So that is the first idea. Second thing, it builds relationship with the product. So as much as we would build relationship with people, the consumer industry would make in a way that human beings would build relationship with the products. So how much do you trust Puma? How much do you trust Nike? How much do you trust the iPhone? So it builds relationship. So there is building of relationship, there is building of identity, and then there is a building of common, what do we say? Because everybody wants to squeeze into the common identity. Like if your singer, your ideal personality, let's say Justin Bieber, uses the shoe that you like, then you would also want to go for that brand, meaning that you share similar identities. And so with that, there is a pattern that continues, and when you follow the continuum of the pattern, then there is a huge fall, there is a huge trap in it. So that is how things becomes addictive, how product becomes addictive. So it really leads you to building relationship. So at this point, I really want to hear from you how Nagas are even lost there. Yeah. Because somewhere in Instagram or somewhere we are lost. That's the side of what we are talking of, drunk in entertainment, not just the YouTube that we watch. Yeah. So product that we use. Okay. So in that sense, how do you see the young Nagas losing ideas and thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a long question with the footnotes attached to that question. That's helpful. Yes, that's very relevant, I would say. I will give you an example, and I'll want to cite again Paulo Freire here. It's very relevant. He says, the oppressed having internalized into the lifestyle and the image of the oppressor and his guidelines, becomes fearful of freedom. Now, I'm not taking your example, but a student like you receives a scholarship. Let's say whose parents don't have, much income, from the lower class and economically not privileged. But that student receives a scholarship. And now he uses up to buy iPhone. Why iPhone? Because oppressor, now not politically, but the brand that oppresses your mind. Now you have become so used to getting internalized by their image and by their habits of how iPhones are used and how Justin Bieber uses iPhone and how I want to be like him, for example. To me, that's yielding to the oppression that a society have. You are giving in to that, and that's not freedom. Because if you don't give in, you are scared of and you become fearful of the freedom that you might enjoy with that money. Suppose you have like 1 lakh scholarship rupees that you just received deposited into your account, and you realize that you could buy 1 iPhone. And if you had not misused that fund, you could have saved it, invested it in a mutual fund, and you could have, increased, multiplied that amount, and that can help you buy land and build houses in your future. But we are scared to live using Redmi phone, because that endangers your status, that endangers your image, that endangers your brand in a world where we love branded things so much. You're scared that what will people think of me? People tell me, you said you're a talk show host, podcaster, why you're still using Redmi phone, which is like 20,000. I'm still using it because that serves the purpose for me. But I have an Apple MacBook, not because I want to, elevate myself to that, to give in to what the society would expect of me, but it serves a purpose for video editing because it's amazing. It's a great technology, great, computer. So for video editors, it really helps. So for me, I feel so liberated because I'm not giving in all this internalized image of the oppressor, the brand, and what will society think of me. So in order to liberate myself, I need to start from that small thing. So I'm able to save, let's say, 50,000 by buying 20,000 ka phone. And I'm able to save 50,000 because if I bought iPhone, I would have spent at least 60, 70,000. Right? Now I have more freedom in life with that money now than you, for example. Because I'm able to save 50,000, but you have used up to 70,000. So you have literally, let's say, nothing in your account now. But you're bragging about, iPhone, that you use iPhone everywhere on social media and clicking in the bathroom with the iPhone logo and so on. We love that, but that is being brainwashed. We don't have to give into that in a very simple language, simple term. So, I'm not talking about you, okay? I'm just taking an example. So I think there are things we don't have to give in life, but it has to be need-based. Same as entertainment. Sometimes you overwork throughout the week and you feel that you need entertainment. Please go. Please enjoy the movie. Please go and watch all the reels by Naga reel makers, those girls dancing on Instagram. If it relaxes your mind, you can watch it. But having your work if you prioritize watching those things and going to concerts and talking about Hornbill, talking about festivals all the time and not giving much time to your other things, then that becomes a problem. That's become where we can conveniently say we are drunk in entertainment, we're drunk in branding. So apart from that, my personal advice to all of us would be invest in your personal brand rather than a brand that is made by somewhere in US, in Apple or Nike or Puma. I'm still wearing a shoe that is like, I don't know, it's called Campus, which does not have a really brand. But if I need to go to a place where I need to wear brand, I will. So this is part of a critical thinking, my friends. It's not academic, but it is applicable in a day-to-day life. How you're being brainwashed and you're not able to get out of it. I see a lot of young, high school students using iPhones. I wonder what is going on in their mind that they felt the need to purchase that phone. So we are being directed by the subconscious, like Carl Jung says. The unconscious part is directing our life, because he again in another quote says, people love judgment, people love assumption, because we hate thinking, right? We love to judge because we don't want to think. Thinking is an effort all of us have to put in. So in simple language, and from academic to complex ideas, concepts, to day-to-day purchases of your commodity and your stuffs and your equipments and your phones and gadgets and so on, I think it's important for us to know what is important for you, and as long as that serves the purpose, it's good. I mean, yeah, that's my take. Thank you.
It's hard to learn things, but what's harder, it's even harder to unlearn what we have learned. So be careful what you learn, because when you learn something very bad, it will not go out of your memory, it will always stay there. So be careful of what you put it into your head. So that's what my concluding statement would be. And thank you, Mr. Lungleng, for having this time. Now, as a moderator, I would not allow a paragraph long question. The questions that you want to ask, keep it precise, so that Mr. Lungleng would have enough time to answer to your question. Is that fine? But if you have more things to discuss, we will be open for that. But if you have questions now, let's keep this over there. Yes. Can somebody pass the mic?
While he's grabbing the mic, we should learn how to question. We should just stand up. What your classmates will think of you, it's not important. So whatever you have thoughts in your mind, it's okay. You might be struggling in front of everyone, but you need to start from there. If you don't risk embarrassment in the first place, then you will not go anywhere, right?
My question is twofold, if that's okay. But it's not that long. It's not a paragraph long question. Before I ask the question, I just want to clarify that I'm not anti-national or I'm not anti-Naga. I'm just asking for the sake of discussion. You've referenced the First Amendment of the United States twice. So I just wanted to ask regarding the case of Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden was a high-ranking. He was a member in the Central Intelligence Agency, and he exposed the NSA for spying on the U.S. civilians. So should people such as Edward Snowden not be protected under some provision of the First Amendment? Since if we as a people were to find out that the Central Bureau of Intelligence in India was also conducting something similar to the NSA in America, we would also be shocked, but at the end we would be grateful that something such as that was exposed. So should people like Edward Snowden not be granted or pardoned under some provision of the First Amendment? And my second question would be, regarding NLTP, what is exactly your position on the separation of church and state? Because for quite some time, whether we'd like to admit it or not, the churches in Nagaland have had a significant say, not officially in legislation, but they've had a significant say in how we as individuals conduct our daily lives, especially with regards to observing Sabbath day on Sunday, bringing our entire economy to almost a halt once per week. We might think it's once per week, but then if you add up the years, it adds up significantly. And I don't want to name any names or specify any people or organizations, but these are the same people that are advocating for this are the ones going to Assam and shopping on Sunday. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a wonderful. Those are wonderful questions, and that shows you have. That's just the tip of an iceberg style, like background. You have thought a lot about it, and I appreciate for being able to raise questions like that. Edward Snowden. There's a movie about him. I'm not sure if you have watched, but I have watched it. It's wonderful. He took the risk. It was not comfortable for him to do that. He took the final goal, like, I must do this. So his ethics won't allow him to go on without exposing it. And he risked his life. Now he's in Russia. not being able to meet his love of his life, not being able to meet his family in the US. So he's there. Whether he should be pardoned is a good question. But in the United States, there's something called Espionage Act, right? So espionage is when you expose the security information of the US to the enemy. Wait, let me take a sip. My throat is getting dry. Sorry. So, freedom of speech, like I said, it is bound by the legality. The laws that exist that in the country or in the state frames law. So, if any freedom of speech is violated by that, violates that law, then definitely they come into that purview. But the spirit of freedom of speech is that he has the right to say it, because that surveillance is, let's say, intrusive in people's life. That's surveilling like what you are saying, what you're writing in your phone, what kind of text message you're sending. And Obama was listening to all the conversations on the United States of citizens of the USA. That's what happened. So this Snowden was exposing that there's something like this going on. And this is against the right of the people, because in democracy, people have the right to know what is the government doing to them. And legal experts will explain this better, but from my opinion, I think he should be pardoned because he's a hero for information. If I were the president of the United States, I would pardon him. I would pardon Julian Assange. I would pardon Snowden and the other lady. I forgot her name, his name. So 3 of them should be pardoned and make democracy vibrant, make transparency vibrant. It doesn't matter as long as you're violating the rights of the people, the privacy of the people, whether it's a national security. So in the name of national security, whatever you say today can become illegal. And that is a very sad situation. To me, that's very sad, because we are human beings first, and we are individual first before we are nation. So that will also, some people think that we are nation first and your individuality doesn't matter. To me, we are individual human being first. And then that nation, the purpose of nation, a state, if you read social contract theory, is to serve for the benefits of the citizens. Democracy is people of the government, for the people and by the people. So when you look at the spirit of democracy and spirit of freedom of speech, Snowden should be pardoned, because he's just exposing the crimes of the government, and we need that kind of truth in our life. So, yeah.
And he has a follow-up question.
Follow-up question is NLDP in the church.
What's your exact stand on NLDP?
And my exact stand is this, okay. Church, like I said, church has a right to say their opinion, but let the government of the day decide after having studied all the implications and impact that it can have. So I believe in that, and let them take a call. I wouldn't say, alcohol should be banned or liquor should not be banned. I think that's too shallow. That's too shallow for a debate. To have logical debate, first let's look at the data and evidence of what can happen and what cannot happen. What are the advantages and disadvantages? Like I said, for now it's all about assumptions and biases. Oh, if people start drinking, then this will happen. And the other group will say, if liquor ban is lifted, then this will be the economy of our state. As if we have studied about it, right? Those who have never studied economics, they start talking about economy. So we need to use experts, and let's study the document. Before studying anything, I think it's too shallow to debate and take your own stand. I would like to see how it can take us, and we can further debate. Now, regarding the closure of shops and this and that on Sunday and all, to me, church may have their own say, it's fine. But I believe that, thank you. I strongly believe that closure of shops on Sunday should not be a law. It should be a tradition. So we need to understand the difference between law and tradition. Law is law made by the state legislative assembly, that if you break this, you're going to jail. But tradition is people close it because no customers come and do the shopping on Sunday. So people close it by tradition. That's what happened in Europe. I was in Germany for 2 years. And Sunday is the most boring day in Germany and around in Europe. because Sundays shops are not open. It's so boring, like big buildings. You don't see any human beings walking around. So boring. But when I look at it, do they have a law that says people should close their shops on Sunday? No, it's a tradition. It's a culture. So people have the freedom. So we all come back to, again, freedom. A choice, free will. He's introduced with our conversations with free will and determinism. I believe if people have freedom, people should have the freedom and the free will. If they want to open, let them open. But church will have a different say. More than the church, our national workers will say, no, Nagaland is for Christ, so it should not be open. I think this needs to be debated, but I believe closure of shops, because even the church will preach that don't open shops on Sunday if you're a businessman. But after the church, they take their guests to Domino's and KFC. Just to have a conversation. Then if those shops were not open, where would they go? Right? The pastor will preach in the Sunday morning. Opening shop on Sunday is not ethical as a Christian. But that pastor might go after church to hang out with a friend who visited from other state, from other country. In that same shop which are open, same cafe which are open. So it serves a purpose when cafes are open. So to me, it's too narrow to say shops should not be open, shops should be closed or whatever. But let it be the will of the people and let it be a tradition. If people don't go for shopping on Sunday, then shoppers, the shopkeepers will not open on Sunday. So if we make it the law, then that restricts our freedom. And I'm something like a freedom activist. I vouch for freedom for everyone, because government should not be too big that they take away your freedom. Because when you're so much absorbed into what the government dictates you, then we become just like a bag of potatoes who don't say anything, who we just cooked and eaten, and we live life just once. I believe our freedom should be maximized, and there should be less government in our life, but more freedom in our life. Government should exist just to protect us. That's it. I hope it's not offensive.
Okay. But sir, as you talked about the idea of laws, laws are there because there's a consequences for that, right? Yeah. But I think I'm a bit skeptical about your concept on law, because to me personally, as far as my knowledge is concerned, laws are there to direct. Laws are there to guide. Laws are not there for consequences. Laws are not there because there's a consequences. Because it's my presupposition that laws are there to guide people. Laws are there to direct and not as a threat for the consequences. I don't know if that makes sense, but just
yes, yeah, it is there to guide us, but it is there to guide you. But if you break this, there's a consequence, right? Is there any law that would not have consequence if you break it? So laws are made so that you don't break that. So, for example, an NLTP is, for example, the nearest to us NLTP. If you open liquor shop, then if you open, it bans liquor sale. But if you open liquor shop to serve the customers, then definitely they will punish you as per the law. Whether government is punishing or not, that's a different question, right? But as per the law, you should be jailed, imprisoned for this long, imprisoned for this year. So I think all in all, laws are made to guide us and so that we go to that direction. But if you deviate from that direction, then every law has its own punishment that is assigned to those deviators. I mean, that's my take.
That's fair enough. Okay, can we have next question? Okay. We have 3 over there. Let's give it to the last row, a friend there. Okay, we'll have 5 last questions, okay, including this question.
Hello. Yeah. So what I wanted to talk about was before we have also touched upon the topic of free will, and we know that as Nagaland we are a Christian state. We pride ourselves in our Christian values. So what I wanted to talk about is like as Christian, I would say free will is a inherent Christian value. We value free will, and normally we have a lot of rules in Christianity. We have sins, but we don't stop people from committing sin. we normally let them face their own consequences. So my question is, as a Christian state, and why are we, taking away free will from people who want to consume alcohol? If they want to consume alcohol, let them. They're not, impacting you. And if we are really Christian, and if we really look into Christian values, free will is an important Christian value. So we should also know that we should be mindful of our hypocrisy. Yeah, and that's one thing. And also, I also want to talk about in Assam. Assam is a very developed state, and they have free liquor market. And here in Nagaland, I feel like the liquor market is managed by the non-locals a lot. So what happens is we are, preventing a lot of economic development. Like, why are we sacrificing economic progress for our religious values? That also is one thing. And then I also want to talk about one thing. In Indonesia, there's a province called Aceh, and people normally view it as a extremist province because there's a Sharia law in place, which is a bunch of Islamic laws, which I'm not so clear. But I feel like basically we, Nagaland, we are also a sort of a Christian extremist state because, see, we ban liquor, we are taking away in this geographical area called Nagaland, we are taking away the free will from all the people from consuming alcohol. So we are doing that, and we are also banning people from buying and selling goods on Sunday, and especially the underground goods are, they are ensuring that. So are we not the same as Indonesia's Aceh province? Are we also not an extremist state? That's my question, sir.
Thank you. First of all, it's a very highly misused term that we always use. Nagaland is a Christian state. It's not a Christian state. It's a Christian majority state, right? We should keep that in mind. Yes, I believe in free will. Everyone who wants to drink, please, like in your room, in the place you want to drink, please enjoy it, as much as you want. You can come back next morning also, it's fine. So that's a free will I believe in. But the point of the church is also that it's the church, when I talk to the NBCC group, they say it's not because it's a moral sin that they want to ban alcohol. But due to the given situation in the late 1980s, or beginning from 1970s, the movement started with the Naga Mother Association, and NBCC came into the picture later on. And then this started because people, the rise of domestic violence became unthinkable those days. And that's why we questioned a lot in our debate, saying that, then was the context in the late 1980s so bad that we need to apply the same law in 2024? So that was the point of our discussion as well. So that's why we need to review this. Review, not to lift or not to continue the ban, but to understand, to grasp the reality of what is really going on and what will be the impact, positive or negative. And so the cabinet or assembly has to take a call after that. Otherwise, yes, no state, no one has the right to impose moral laws on you. That's, I strongly believe. Whether I want to, drink, or whether you want to go and, in a very loose term, you're going to want to go and sleep with a man or woman, that's nobody's business, right? It's your personal life. That's why the whole idea of the LGBTQ that came to Nagaland also erupted. Some national groups, asking them to leave within 3 days, leave Nagaland 3 days. I mean, that's expected from them, but at least for people. So it's a very debated topic. I totally oppose the idea of QIA movement. But the idea is that they have the freedom of what they want to be. They have the right to freedom to gather in a place where they want to be. That's a freedom I'm looking at. Not because I agree with them, not because I support them. So like the liquor thing, I think, whoever wants to drink, let them drink. But the consequence will come if they start making nuisance in the society and start committing violence. The law will come only there. Otherwise, just drinking and consuming for yourself. If you want to, hurt yourself, it's up to you. If you want to promote yourself or if you want to improve your life, it's up to you, right? At the end of the day. So yes, we have free will, and I vote for free will. I vote for personal liberty and freedom, the way they want. No one should be policing us on moral grounds. I don't believe in that. No, and government's hands should not be too long that they start putting their fingers in a personal life. I totally believe in that. We need minimum government and maximum governance. What we need from government is actually the road that is leading from the main road to the Nagaland University, for example, right? Those are the things government should take care of, not your personal life. So it's up to you, your moral, as long as you don't hurt anyone. But the moment you hurt others, then that is an implication for the law to come in. So that's my understanding.
The summary of that answer would be, freedom comes with responsibility, so be careful what you choose. So that is something to keep in mind. Okay, let's take the next question from Sir Miller, and then we'll go this row. As said, as far as possible, keep the question precise, and then ask real questions so that you get real answer. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, moderator, for giving this time. Many of the students have answered about or met a statement about free will, which I believe free will to us is integral, a part of life, and not only as a core value or principle of being a Christian by birth or sharing the dogma or principles of being a Christian alone. So free will to me is integral, which is reasonably fundamental for every human or person, so to say. Yeah, that is not my question, but I just wanted to make a statement.
Okay.
Sir, my question to you is, I just wanted to get your opinion about a parallel form of a governance, which is very much prevalent and happening in our society, with that of the CSOs, with that of the UGs. Please don't mind for that. But reasonably, that is very much happening. Not only that of the CSOs, but many of such as the organizations and bodies and the associations with that of the NBCC. This is also a follow-up question to which we have been discussing about that. So that is my question. To where do we draw this line? The understanding of a parallel form of governance, which clearly is happening all around in every part and parcel of the society as well. And the second question is, it's mostly about me being a seeker of truth. I would love to reason it and question this. The difference and the understanding between the truth and narration. In the pinnacle of entertainment, since the topic is also being given, sir, being a part of the entertainment, so to say entertainment, I would like to assume, as in being a podcaster here, and then being a YouTuber to some extent, you have your show there. I quite follow you there. So my question is, where do we again draw the line between this truth and narration? Because if we have to keep on seeking the truth, certainly because of the narration, somehow we may deviate from the truth. And certainly I'm sure that we have always deviated from the truth because of the narration and then the narratives of some certain political, groups, or understanding of some certain individuals, and understanding of some narratives about some certain ideologies that we seem to impose on or understand or assume that way. So those are my two questions. Thank you.
You are a teacher here? Scholar. Okay, thank you. Let me first start my opinion. I'm not saying that this is the answer, but my opinion on parallel government. Parallel government, we need to understand, no parallel government should exist in the world, first and foremost. But when you look at why it exists, you have to question, why does it exist? It exists because of the incomplete or uncooked or half-cooked solution that is given to the Naga people. So when you look at the root cause, I think in the 1960s, 1950s, half of the population were against any arrangement given to the Nagas other than complete sovereignty. So since Nagaland state was, Nagaland state was, the statehood was given to the Naga people, the former Naga Hill Tuensang area, which was a district of Assam, right? So this statehood was given to that district. then many nationalists started challenging that this is not what we wanted. We want complete sovereignty. So I think we all fall as a prey to the government of India's policy. And I'm not saying that we should fight the government of India, but had the government of India put more effort into thinking and, not just with a condescending attitude that we know what you need, we know what you want, we will give, we will impose whatever we want to impose upon you. So if they had put an effort, serious and genuine effort to bring the people together and just, hey, whatever you want, let's discuss. I want to hear you out. If Jawaharlal Nehru said that, Naga people would definitely respond in. There will be, proper dialogue and conversations. And then the differences that they have among themselves, I believe, would reduce. Because once we start having conversation and dialogue, differences just melt away. That's from my experience. Suppose you have a huge tension with your neighbor, and you don't want to talk because you have an ego. We have an ego. Like, I don't want to talk to that person. But the moment you reach out and start talking, man, like, you feel like then why we are even fighting for? What are we even fighting for? There's no difference among us. So sometimes, having a good dialogue reduces all these differences and, lead us to a common solution. I felt that government of India failed to do that in the 1960s. They just imposed picking the Naga area, Tuensang Hill area, carving out of Assam and giving statehood. Now half of the population who are against it, where will they go? They will still continue to struggle for it. That's why they're still continuing to struggle for until today. Signing the agreed position, signing the framework agreement. For them, it's their life. They have given their life for it. Why would they give up? Why would you give up? That's a question that you need to ask, we need to ask. That's why I think the government of Nagaland is also tolerating, because they understand the dynamics of this politics. But I don't think there is a simple answer to that. But yes, parallel government should not exist. So in order for us to make sure this does not exist, everyone should, request, talk about, we need at least some sort of a political settlement for the Nagas, acceptable to the Nagas. Otherwise, this will go on, and you don't want to spend all your life living in a fake world, in a fake democracy where you cannot say anything, in a fake governance. It's all fake right now, because even the Chief Minister of Nagaland does not have absolute power as an elected leader. The governor has the power to do anything on the law and order, which is a betrayal to democracy itself. Governor is not elected by people. He should not have any right to do that. He should do everything in consultation with the chief minister, because chief minister is the leader of the people, right? People elect him. So keeping all these things in mind, like, to me, it's not the real world. It's not a real democracy we're living in. So that's why the idea of parallel government always exists, whether you like it or you don't. I mean, that is my understanding on the reality of Naga political problems and why Nagaland is like this today. You may agree, you may not. And the next question? Yeah, truth and narrative. So that's a very good question, and it's very subjective as well. But I would say truth is a very huge topic, and I'm not in the position to define and talk about it right now. But I believe narratives are founded with some personal biases, with some assumptions, and there's no critically involved much there, because ideology and all of that, even the metaphysics people who believe in metaphysics, that evidences and empiricism should go beyond just verifiable data. That's what metaphysics people believe. But positivists will believe that everything, all kinds of evidence and truth will come out when there is only verifiable method. Anything that is not verifiable should not be considered truth. So when you get down into philosophical conversation, it also, we also become very different, and our opinions will again be different, and you don't know which one will be which. But I think narratives and all of that are built by sometimes propagandists. So we have to be very careful. So it's a responsibility to dig into the truth further and further, and with the help of data, information, evidences, and less personal biases or zero personal bias and assumptions. Then I think when we focus on objectivity and logic with the help of evidence and information, I think we can definitely understand and differentiate narratives and truth in the future. But yes, there is always a clash between these two, so we got to be very careful about it.
With that, we'll shift to the next question. Over there, first row.
Okay. Okay, I'll take this question. So it is on your perspective on freedom of speech in Nagaland. Okay, so you have said we have become a land of apology. So I want to know to what extent. Okay. Yeah. Okay. What is wrong with our society? Is it that we are too sensitive or intolerant, or is it okay, or is it our approach to criticism of other people the wrong approach, or is it the oppression of the powerful, the educated, and the rich? And if I have to fear the consequences of my freedom of speech, then what is the point of freedom of speech? And if this is the environment that we are creating, will this environment foster critical thinking?
True. I mean, like I said, the freedom of speech that we have here is just the pseudo freedom of speech. It's the fake one, okay? Because I believe the root cause is there is no rule of law. I mean, no one likes freedom of speech because as long as you talk about, crappy things about me, I wouldn't like it. So if I have the power, I would definitely impose, or I might start saying, hey, please shut that person up. I don't like to hear anymore. It's totally, it has become unbearable. So the powerful people will keep imposing that and demanding, apology letters and so on. Because there is no rule of law. The powerful class is the law. The people who have guns are the law. And the ministers and politicians are the law here. I mean, and let's say most of the tribal organizations are the law. We don't have a common uniform law that says, oh, we will abide by this. We all should be ruled by this. We do have law, but, like I said, there's no actual rule of law. And there are many factors leading to that. One is we have a proxy government. I mean, in a sense, because there's no actual democracy installed in a country, in a state like this. Everything is just for now fake. We need to install actual democracy where law will rule all over us and will become equal before law in every sense. And when there is disagreement, when there is false accusation, defamation also, that nobody has to write apology letters, but rather they should be fought in the court. So tell me which tribal organizations believe in court, right? Maybe no one, or maybe there are some. Rather, we want to, oh, you are saying wrong things about us. Please write apology letters. Otherwise, we won't spare you. The consequences, whatever you face, you will be solely responsible. That's the favorite phrase that we like to use. You will be solely held responsible. Because there's no law. In fact, those confrontations and differences should be fought in the court, in case if it is too important. But no one likes to go to court because court is not an option for us. Do you ever, because there is a power behind the screen. So when there is any issue that comes up, we love going to that power, not the actual court, not the actual people who are going to make the judgment for you. So I believe it's all because lack of rule of law that we don't have the full freedom yet. Because only rule of law, it was on 26 January 1950 that India adopted its own constitution. That's why India became a republic country. Now we are ruled by the law. I mean, to some extent, it has improved a lot, but it has not, that effectiveness has definitely not reached the state like Nagaland, like Manipur, like many other remote areas, because there are powers and forces which play important role in the background. And government of India does not want to do anything about it to resolve those. I mean, that's my understanding about the actual problems that's happening in a country, in a state like ours.
Shall we have last question? Okay.
Yeah, I think we should take no ladies. Yeah, come on, this is you guys are being oppressed again.
Yeah. Okay, let's give it a chance to
Yeah.
our friend over there.
Thank you. I'm sure there are a lot of ladies here with lots of questions, but I shall kickstart with it. So, sir, my question, it's quite simple. It deals with the one part of the section of our topic of discussion today, that is critical thinking, which is considered as one of the 21st century skills. And here I think most of us will know that education plays a pivotal role in honing or developing these 21st century skills among the students. However, coming to the context of our education system, I think it's quite apparent, irrespective of the revised educational policies, that our education is still more inclined towards using lecture-based methods, or at the end of the day, it is still more oriented towards obtaining marks or grades. So, given such a scenario, sir, do you believe that our education system is honestly dedicating enough time and resources to developing these skills, especially critical thinking skills, among the students? Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm not in support of an idea that you would go home and read and do the assignment and come back and submit it and get a grade based on that. And you will be judged, you will be rated or scored based on that. Your intelligence is not being tested on that. And I think that's a faulty way of judging the person's intelligence. Because there are many, many intelligent, highly skilled people, but they don't sometimes go along with the idea of the system, the settings. We all know the quote given by Albert Einstein saying, if you ask a fish and monkey to climb the same tree, who would win, right? It's the monkey. If you ask the same thing to swim in the water, it's the fish. That's why I think our education system also fails. Like I said, the banking education, just depositing ideas and information. And you don't reciprocate to it. You don't get a chance to reciprocate. So critical thinking actually, is very, very important. I would share my personal experience. When I did my graduation BA, until my BA, I used to do just read and write the notes and write in the exam and got first class. And I got first class distinction in political science. I mean, my honor was political science. And I got first class distinction. But I just read the note and write, that's it. But when I admitted in the Nagaland Institute of Social Sciences, exam became very, very insignificant. You don't study for exam anymore. The next morning, exam, you just go and write whatever you understand. But what became so important in an institute like that for me was discussion, debates, and digging the real problems, issues behind certain social reality. Then, see, this kind of debates and discussion will educate us more than the books that we read sometimes. Because unless you do this, see, when you ask questions, the amount of the processes that your mind is doing right now is way higher than when you read a book. So you ask questions because you have processed so much, you have thought to yourself so much, right? If you had not invested in thinking about this question, you wouldn't be able to ask. Whoever has asked question, you have thought a lot about it. You have put your mind in, trying to reason out. That's why you're able to ask questions. But when you read book, it's not the same thing. You become so bookish and obsolete knowledge, and it doesn't apply to a real life anymore. So yes, critical thinking is the only way to go forward. If you want job out of your education, then try to learn skills separately as well, if you want that. But our education, we're brainwashed as it's a job-oriented education system. And it's because we're economically very, very weak, very poor. So when we dream of education, we dream of job, we dream of UPSC.
Hello, sir. Due to time constraint, I'll just dive in. I will just dive right into my question without any given statement. So my question is, what is it? But before I ask my questions, I apologize to other people who are not from Nagaland, because my question is strictly regarding Naga people in the context of Naga. So my question is, what is it that bars us, that is the Naga society, towards positive development on any field or domains? Is it that we linger too much in the past, emotionally tied to the past, or are we psychologically oppressed by the ideas and principles of the past? Is it these reasons that is stopping us from critically thinking and coming up with new ways and methods that have potential to take us forward? Yeah. That would be my question.
That's that. But I believe the first thing would be, there should be proper system. And when there is no transparency in the system, I mean, there cannot be development. Seriously, there cannot be development. Think about the investment the world has made for the development of Africa. Like they're the biggest beneficiaries in the world, and look at how they are still, right? So it's not about the investment that comes to our land. Sometimes it's about how we make use of our skills here and how we make use of our resources within ourselves. And for that to happen, we need transparent government. We need people-centered government. So the system has to be first transformed. And in order for that to transform, I believe, for Nagas, the Naga political solution has to be settled. Political issue has to be settled. Without that, no matter what kind of shiny policy we frame and formulate, nothing will work. Seriously, nothing will work. Because like he said, there's a parallel government that may like it or may not like it. And, it's too naive and narrow-minded and too narrow on our part to just blame, it's because of them that we're not growing. But I think we need to understand the issue holistically in very comprehensive manner, or why certain things happen like this. We need to question that and understand. Development is a very, very huge topic, and I studied development. So it's a very, very huge topic. The end goal of development is freedom. You should have freedom to go to. You should have the freedom. You have the access to all these facilities, health, education, sanitation, and so on. You have to have access. When you have access, there is freedom. So, for example, you are sick and you don't have a good hospital here because there's corruption, and you want to go to Delhi immediately, but you don't have an airport here because there's no airport here. You want to go to High Court, but the High Court still is construction for the last more than 10 years, example, right? So to me, it's all about, the always question comes down to transparent government. And transparent government can be built only when there is, I wouldn't say perfect, at least maximum democracy. And we know we don't have democracy here. So development and democracy go hand in hand. And dictatorship and entertainment also sometimes go hand in hand. Okay? When you look at Roman Empire, you will see there's a concept of bread and circus. So the gladiator fights were not invented for anything. It was just to distract the people from questioning the government those days. And people were drunk in bread. I mean, bread means for the food. They didn't like anything, so they don't have time to question the government. But when French Revolution happened in 1789, just 7 years before that, the economy of France collapsed. And agriculturally, there was drought. People were suffering like anything. Because people got tired, people got angry, and only then French Revolution happened. Without people having to go through all those pain and hardships, I don't think French Revolution would have happened. And that's one of the most remarkable revolution ever happened in the history of mankind, right? They overthrew the monarchy and the rule of people, fraternity and liberty, those three words, it emerged. I think that set the trend for humanity and for democracy. So sometimes people need to go through the pain, and without that, that's why the idea of a bread and circus in the Roman Empire days, they supplied that so that people get drunk in that fun and entertainment and supply of enough food so that they don't want to question anything. So don't take me otherwise. I want to say this. Imagine the Nagaland state is still under Assam. You all and we all will be 10 times more critical than what we are right now. If you look at the Nagas from Myanmar, Arunachal, and Manipur side, they think more critically about their own government, sometimes hegemonic government. They are more aware of their rights than the Nagas here. You know why? Because they have been so oppressed, and they started thinking for themselves. But in a state like Nagaland, people are more comfortable than other Nagas in other states. That's why people don't have much time to question the government here. Some will question, on social media, that's a different thing. But we don't appreciate people who are questioning. We don't appreciate people who are protesting. So, bread and circus, when the government gives you all this, don't get, like Arvind Kejriwal will say, just take the money for votes, but vote for us. Take the money from BJP, but vote for us. Take the bread and circus, whatever, but keep your mind open. So they will learn a better lesson. Oh, we gave all this them and all these things to them, and we are now again losing. They are criticizing us. You know, I mean, just to a simple opinion on that.
Okay, with that we come to the end of our Q&A session. Thank you, Mr. Lungleng. Let's give it up for
Thank you.
Mr. Lungleng.